Free agency continues as the 49ers make a couple moves while losing a few more players. Jason Aponte, we're going to talk about where the 49ers go in free agency from here on a brand new Sprint Right Option podcast that starts now.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Right Option podcast. Oh man, it is a new Sprint Right Option podcast. We should have advertised that Aaron Rodgers is making his announcement on the pod day. Get up to 500,000 live viewers maybe one time. We'll see. That could be us one day, but this is a new Sprint Right Option podcast. I am Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte, a player who I would still sign for a 4-year, $84 million contract. That hasn't changed since Monday. Jason, how are you doing on this lovely Friday evening?
That feels like it's an overpay, in my opinion. At this point,
underpay.
And sorry if I seem distracted. I'm watching the baseball tournament that nobody cares about right now, because a bunch of people are angry.
Bunch of people are bad, just horrible takes. What's up, Akash, in the chat today? Horrible takes with the World Baseball. It means something to the players, and that's why they're there. And I think that's all that should matter. But I guess it's not, because people got to get their narratives off on social media, Jason.
Yeah, whatever, man. But high class baseball being played by major leaguers who are prideful in their country. It's so funny. So many people scream, well, they only do it for the money. Well, here are some players that are not doing it for any money. And either way, they're getting yelled at. But you're not here for baseball.
No,
you're here for recent movies that I've watched. And I just watched Knock at the Cabin, Andrew Pasquini. The new M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Okay. How was that?
It was 8.5 out of 10. Usually M. Night
10.
Shyamalan has a twist at the end of the movie. I felt that it was very much straightforward and easy to digest. A very interesting story of 4 people, including the best wrestler turned actor, Dave Bautista. Yes. They come to a cabin where they hold up a family of 3, and one of them has to sacrifice their life to save humanity. I won't give away anything extra, but Knock at the Cabin, 8.5 out of 10.
Sometimes the best M. Night Shyamalan swerve at the end of the movie is no swerve at all.
No swerve. And
if you're waiting for it, there is no bigger swerve than no swerve. Mm-hmm. I'm a wrestling fan, so that's like 90% of wrestling. It's like, okay, well, what's going to happen at the end of the show here? And then it's nothing, and then you're just disappointed. But hey, that's what it is.
Baseball, movies, out of the way. Let's get to it.
Baseball. Well, I got Wolves. Wolves are playing Leeds tomorrow, which is a Niners tie-in. Because no, I'm joking. We'll dive into free agency, Jason Aponte. The Niners have made 2 signings since we have last talked. We got to touch on Sam Darnold a little bit. We'll touch a little more on Sam Darnold later, because there are some thoughts people have on what Sam Darnold's position is within the 49ers. Jason and I will discuss it, but let's talk about the 2 newest San Francisco 49ers, Clelin Ferrell and Isaiah Oliver. Come on down. We'll talk about Clelin Ferrell first, a 1-year, $2.5 million deal for the edge rusher. He was the 4th overall pick in the 2019 NFL draft. 2 picks after a guy we know pretty decently, goes by Nick Bosa. Some call him Joey Bosa. Safe to say Ferrell hasn't met that draft position. However, if you go back to the 2019 draft, while yes, early in the draft, Clelin Ferrell was maybe viewed, or early in the draft process, Clelin Ferrell was viewed as a top 5 pick. I don't think people saw him as that in the 2019 draft, or when we got to April in 2019, and then the Raiders made him a top 5 pick. So, Jason, just before we dive in too deep on Clelin Ferrell, what were your thoughts? What were your reactions just kind of right away before we dive into who Clelin Ferrell is?
I felt like Mike Mayock did the Leo meme. Like he pointed at his screen, like, like
I didn't expect that one. That's a good one.
I mean, neither actually. That was off the top. But Mike Mayock was big on him. Clelin Ferrell is going to be the latest recipient of the Chris Kosuric stimulus package, which has gotten so many other players paid. Chris Kosuric, he needs to get a check from these people. And again, when you're thinking about depth, obviously it's not the sexiest name that jumps out. And when you think about his draft capital and what he's been able to provide, they actually produced more sacks than Artie Key from the Raiders in that time. But yeah, it just seems like, again, depth and somebody who you could see having probably his most solid season under the 49ers.
Yeah, so his numbers not great. 2022, he had 492 snaps, 23 pressures, and 2 sacks. In his career, he has 10 sacks, which is, as I mentioned on a Niners Nation article yesterday, a number that Nick Bosa has met in a single season 2 different times. Career high was 4.5 his rookie season. He's had 98 pressures on a career 1,874 snaps. And I don't mean to continue to compare him to the defensive player of the year, but it's easy to compare because they were the 2 top edge rushers taken in that class. Nick Bosa also had 98 pressures in 2022 alone on 898 snaps. So in case you're wondering of the production for Ferrell just over 4 years, essentially what Bosa did last year. Put that in over a stretch of 4 years, and that's Clelin Ferrell. One thing I noticed that I thought was impressive, and I know we have a conversation about the PFF grades and all that. His first 2 seasons, the grade against the run were pretty stellar. The last 2 seasons, not great. Something I looked at, though, because we talk about missed tackles, especially with Javon Kinlaw, and we talk especially with Dre Greenlaw. His rookie season, his missed tackle percentage, according to PFF, was 18.6%. His second season was 14.3. His third season was 10.6, and then last year was 4.0. So you see a consistent improvement. That 4.0 would have matched Kerry Hyder for best on the 49ers 2022 defensive line. So I guess my question is, because I haven't watched Ferrell yet, I see his numbers. They kind of look like they skew more of a run stopper than a pass rusher, but he has that pass rush in him. Do you think this is a move, Jason, that the Niners made? Because you look at how they've dealt with the interior of the defensive line the past few years since not Javon Kinlaw, since DeForest Buckner, they've really gone run stopping heavy in the interior. This offseason, they make the big move for Javon Hargrave, who's more pass rush centric out of that interior. Is this Clelin Ferrell signing more of a balance out to get another better run stopper, or do you think this is just the Niners really like to get their cheap edge rushers and try and see what happens?
I think
it's a combination of both.
It's both. It's definitely both. I mean, he can kick inside and stop the run, but I do think that a lot of his issues with the Raiders was a little too stiff, not fluid, doesn't look pretty. He needs more pass rush moves. This is where Chris Kosera comes in, but I do think it's a little bit of both at this point. When you think about your and I do think the 49ers are going to add a premier edge rusher still, right? Like someone who can compete. Hello, Justin Houston. I'm looking at you.
I have another name.
Who's that?
Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, well, that's going to cost them a lot of money, I think. But the thing is you could do a lot worse than having Ferrell as your third edge rusher in a rotation. So that's the thing. It's just, I think every free agency move needs to be in its proper context. No one is expecting the 49ers to turn Ferrell into somebody who was worthy of the 4th pick. I think when you look at a rotation, I think edge 3 is fine, because I do think Drake Jackson is going to be playing more over him. And I do think they're going to add a speed rusher on the outside. So, yeah, a little bit of both. He can kick inside. He can play the run. But I do think that they're looking to try to refine his technique, help him gain that skill that is in there somewhere, that somebody, I mean, Mike Mayock wasn't the only one who really thought that Ferrell would be a good player, maybe not at 4, like that was a little bit of a reach, but yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I would say that.
Well, yeah, in my brain too, because going back 2019 feels like a task personally, just mentally. It's 4 years ago. That's a long time ago. But I do remember early on in the process, because before Arizona hired Cliff Kingsbury and everything pointed towards Kyler Murray going with the number 1 overall pick, Niner fans weren't thinking about Nick Bosa too. Yo says he only knows Will Ferrell. That's a good Ferrell. Do we just want to start listing Ferrells? I think there's 4.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, it's like Will and Clell. Like, I think Colin
Ferrell. It's Colin Ferrell, not Ferrell.
Okay, that's there we go. I didn't expect to get. I mean, I should have expected.
We're deep in the weeds here.
We're deep here. But no. So going back to 2019, before the Cardinals go with Kyler, Niner fans weren't really thinking about Nick Bosa because Nick Bosa was the consensus number 1 pick, and there was a minute there where people thought maybe Ferrell at 2, and then Quinnen Williams kind of blew up, and Josh Allen blew not the passer Josh Allen, the pass rusher Josh Allen blew up. So that the Raiders taking him at 4, I don't think we should necessarily judge the Raiders' poor drafting on what expectations for Ferrell there should be, because I don't think it's fair to call him a top 5 pick, even though he was, just because the Raiders overvalued him. Jordan Elliott of NinerNation.com, good friend of the podcast, he wrote an article about pass rushers in previous years before the 49ers. I saw that comment. I'm like, Jason's going to do something. I saw it.
I just said hi.
He just said hi, Jason Aponte. And I touched on this a little bit in my article. Jordan used pressure rates. I just used straight out pressure numbers. But he went back and looked at Arden Key and Charles Omenihu their last year before the Niners. Arden Key had an 8.55% pressure rate. Omenihu had a 9.9% pressure rate. And then in their first season with the Niners, both those percentages jumped up about 4%. I don't see why we can't get that with Clelin Ferrell, because that's just what the Niners defensive line and Chris Kosarek, what he's done. So I have a hard time looking at this signing and seeing the name Clelin Ferrell and saying, hey, that's a failed draft pick from 4 years ago. Why is this a move when the evidence is there? And I'm not saying that the past guarantees that Clelin Ferrell is going to turn into somebody very good under the 49ers, but the trend is there, and it's worked with everybody, because Jordan didn't have Samson Ebukam's pressure rates, but I had his career high in pressures before the Niners was 33 on 793 snaps in 2018. And then his highest with the Niners was 50 pressures and 100 less snaps in 2022. So like this is an obvious trend. I don't think you could instantly rule out Clelin Ferrell because of what his draft stock was and what he's done since.
Sprint Right Option Podcast, the only place that you're going to get 5 to 7 minutes on Clelin Ferrell and what he's going to bring to this team amidst all of the other free agency things. Look, I mean, just to kind of put a bow on it.
Yes.
This is the yearly Chris Kosarek project. This is it, right? It worked with Omenihu. It worked with Arden Key. It worked with Samson Ebukam. It may work. It worked with Kerry Hyder for a year.
Yep.
It may work with Jordan Willis. So yeah, I mean, I think properly contextualized, when you look at how this is supposed to go, nobody should be expecting a straight up like resurgence. But what you will see is a solid football player, if history has taught us anything, under Chris Kosarek.
Exactly. So, Jason, I feel like we squeezed as much as we could out of the Clelin Ferrell news. So, so should we move on to the other guy they signed? Cornerback Isaiah Oliver, and admittedly, I'll go left hand up here, Jason Aponte, and I texted in the chat. I wasn't 100% clear on who he was.
You'll go what?
I'll go left hand up. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders.
I like, you guys don't understand that this goes further than the podcast, right? Like, this left hand up thing is like something that I get trolled with in our text messages, in our group chats. It's just, it doesn't stop.
Luhu dog. So yeah, admittedly, I didn't know much about him. I looked into him and I just, sorted his games from last year. And PFF had the Arizona game as his best game. So I went through, looked at that tape, which is just a weird sentence for me to say because I'm not used to being that guy, but I'm working on it. Growth. That's what this is about, right, Jason Aponte?
Yes, sir.
But it doesn't take long to make you realize why the Niners really like this guy. He plays in the slot. The Arizona game doesn't count for the slot because the Falcons used him a lot at safety in that game. They didn't use him a ton at safety in the season, but they used him a lot in that game, which is something the Niners like. He can play safety, maybe not want him to play safety, but he can. But he was very good out of the slot, specifically in the run game. He had his only sack in that game. And if you go back to K'Wan Williams, one of the things the Niners really liked out of the slot was his ability to stop the run. I didn't see much in coverage yet, but as I said, I've only watched one game. I'll give you more thoughts later when I watch more. But if you watch that Arizona game, you can absolutely see why the Niners value Oliver out of the slot.
I think the most important attribute that you can have as a nickel corner is run fits, because essentially you are an extra linebacker. right? And I know that sounds weird because nickel corners are usually smaller guys, but you have to be able to run. You have to be able to run stuff. You have to be able to run fit. You have to be able to. You have to not be afraid to get your helmet dirty. And that's what the 49ers really keyed in on. And also the traits. You know, he used to play in Colorado opposite of Keller Weatherspoon. So you can bet your ass that when they were watching the Keller Weatherspoon and they identified him, they said, oh, who is that? He's not a burner. He has good wingspan. And I think that's what they look at for corners. So, yeah, he'll be asked to cover, but he's going to be needed in the run game. And I think that's what they identified. In the beginning, when you hear the name Isaiah Oliver, aside from draft junkies, whatever it is, right? Like people who are fully invested in draft season, many people are going to say who and why. But I completely understand now when you look at it. In 2020, I think that was probably his best season. In 2021, he had an injury, unfortunately, and he was out for an extended period of time. 2020, I think he had something ridiculous that PFF charted like 22 defensive stops. And what defensive stops are is they're not exactly, they could be tackles for loss, but when you make contact, the runner doesn't gain another yard. A defensive stop, like you are pushing guys back. And I think that's something that the 49ers valued in K1. That's something that Jimmy Ward for sure did well. And I think that this move needs a little bit more love when you think about his fit with this team. So, you know, he was higher on draft boards, you know, at the time. But I think a lot of people expect corners to just have interceptions and things like that. When you look at the way that this scheme is set up, when you look at Steve Wilks as a secondary guy, I think this move is going to be more of it's going to be the most underrated move, I think, of this time. And during the season, a lot of teams are going to look at Isaiah Oliver and say, well, why didn't we identify that? How did we let that slip through the cracks? And I think that's what this scouting department deserves kudos for.
Yeah, and you mentioned Steve Wilks. I was going to mention this because we just talked about Chris Kocurek and his ability to make edge rushers, you know, better than what they are. This feels like the first Steve Wilks project, right? He's in the same division. He comes from the same division that Steve Wilks was in last year. Steve Wilks very heavy with his defensive backs. He has an experience with as a defensive backs coach. So this feels like the first big one. His numbers on the 2022 season, he played in 12 games, 5 starts, 1 interception. Jason Aponte, you want to tell me what that interception was?
Well, funny that you should ask, young Andrew Pasquini. I was actually at the game at the most beautiful stadium in the league, and it was against
with your handle of Fireball, right?
Fireball, yes, correct. That we snuck in. Yes. Thanks for outing me publicly. But yeah.
You said it on this podcast before.
I did actually, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, you know there's nothing better than, you know, during a time where COVID still exists, just be passing around a bottle, just have people just taking shots out of it. But yeah,
small pleasures in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into the half, you know, Jimmy heaves one up there and Oliver makes an interception. That's the type of wingspan you're talking about. It was a great play. He tracked the ball. He got up and he got it. So yeah, that's why when Isaiah Oliver's name came up, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I know that play. Yes. And I immediately was able to pull it up on Twitter, and sure enough, there it was. So somehow, and I hope, you know, I know we're kind of foreshadowing for later on in this episode. I hope this is the last episode that we have to mention someone's name.
Yes.
That isn't here anymore. But yeah,
I was gonna say that up top, and then I was gonna be like, I know we're talking Oliver, and we have to mention the interception. So, but after that, at the end of the episode, we'll swear that name off. We talk, as I said earlier, we talk about the PFF grades: 72.2 PFF coverage grade in 2022, but a 91.5 run defense grade last season. 262 snaps in the slot, 44 in the box, 18 out wide. And especially too, yeah, there you go. That's where I was going to work to is Womack versus Oliver. I'd have to think with the 2-year deal. Haven't seen the money yet though. I'd assume with the 2-year deal, Oliver maybe has a head start, but we'll see. Obviously, that's an August or a July conversation. But especially with these players that I'm not 100% confident in, I do like to go to the team subreddits they used to be on and see what their fans are saying. And the one that really stuck out to me was Falcon fans labeled him as a bust his first few years. The Falcons switched him into the slot, and apparently it's been night and day for him.
Wait. That sounds like the story of Jimmy Ward, but he wasn't moved into the slot. and it was all injuries and everything. And when they finally moved him to safety, it's funny how narratives can change really quick, huh?
Yeah, no, and that's just what it is. It's just when sometimes positions just don't work, and the Falcons found that out. Instead of giving up on him, they said, "Hey, let's try something new." And look at this; he's getting a 2-year deal in free agency. And outside of that, as I said, I'm not fully comfortable talking about him yet because I just know his numbers in one game. But from what I've seen, everything makes sense about him, about why the Niners brought him in. So that's where I'll leave it at with Isaiah Oliver. I don't have as deep of thoughts on Oliver as I do Clelin Ferrell. But let's see what Jason's got on Oliver.
No, I love it. Again, good wingspan, effective in the run game. I think all of this is important. When everybody was so wrapped up in terms of base defenses and whatever it is, it's really about fits, and it's really about the way the league is moving. You're not going to have three linebackers on the field as much. It's moving more towards nickel. So you need a physical corner who, if you want to spread the defense out and run the ball, can be a good defender. The 49ers have had K1, and then they went to Jimmy, and now it's Oliver, and he's experienced. I like the move again. I'm planting my flag that this is going to be the move that many teams look at and they say, man, why didn't we think about taking a look at Oliver? He kind of was just there for anybody to be had. But the 49ers, again, when you look at free agency and you look at all these names that are out there and you're like, why are they not targeting these guys? They have an idea in their head what they want to target, and they know what type of players and traits they want to target, and they went right after him and they got him. So I feel much more confident in the fact that the organization was confident to make sure that they got the deal done.
So with the Niners bringing in Oliver and Clelin Ferrell, those are the two new names the 49ers have signed. We'll see what they're doing. They brought back a couple other players that we haven't touched on yet since Monday. The big one being Jake Brendel signing a 4-year, $20 million deal with the 49ers. The Niners have their starting center. They also re-signed T.Y. McGill to a 1-year deal. That one feels like the T.Y. McGill re-signing feels like one that, hey, right now it doesn't feel good. Just stick a pin in it. Let's remember this in October, November, see what his production is. Because I feel like he was pretty productive in his small run with the Niners. They bring back Demetrius Flanagan Fowles on a 1-year deal. We're DFF Hive on this podcast. And then defensive tackle Kevin Givens brought back on a 1-year, $2.1 million deal. Jason, just real quick on the players brought back, your quick thoughts on them. Obviously, I think you're probably going to lean a little Brendel talk here.
I love it. The Brendel talk is the one that we should probably have that's a little bit more extended, but I love it. Again, depth is important. Not everybody is going to be an impact player. You need bodies at times. Players get injured. T.Y. McGill flashed at the end of the year. I thought that he did some really good things. Kevin Givens, when given the opportunity, is going to rotate with Hargrave and Armstead. You have to love that. And the third one was, you said Kevin Givens, you said DFF, and
T.Y. McGill.
T.Y. McGill. Also, we touched them all. DFF is everybody thinks about him as linebacker depth, but he's much more effective on special teams, and I think that's really important because there is an onus on special teams and trying to be better in it. I think he was like 4th or 5th in the league in tackles on special teams. So, yeah, I mean, Marcelino McCrary-Ball is the most likely to be on the field as the third linebacker whenever they are in base. But DFF definitely has a role on this team, and they wanted to make sure they got that done.
So my last thought on all these 4 players is just with Jake Brendel. Shout out Jim Everett. Haven't seen that name in a while. We love you. Thank you very
he's
much.
Back, man. I love our Rams contingents.
Dare I say, I'll call them our Ramily. Dare I say.
All right, and that's the end of the Sprint Right Option podcast episode. I'm Jason DePonte. As always.
No, so back to Jake Brendel just really quick. I thought this was interesting. Something I touched on in an article, but I threw it out in a tweet. If Brendel starts week 1, and he should, obviously knock on wood with injury, he'll become the first 49ers center to start consecutive week 1s under the Kyle Shanahan era.
Love that tweet from you, by the way.
What was that?
Love that tweet from you, by the way.
Thank you. Daniel Kilgore in 2017. Weston Richburg in 18 and 19. There's your consecutive. 2020, can I throw a little Ronis Grasu at you, Jason Aponte? Remember those days? 2021. 2021 is Alex Mack, and then 2022 is Jake Brendel, and then 23 should be Jake Brendel. So there it is. I mean, listen, the Niners interior, especially the interior offensive line, has had a lot of turnover the past couple of years, especially last year when both the guards were brand new. So it's good to have at least some continuity in the interior of the line. So I like that. Jason, that's all I had on the players the Niners brought back. I'm just trying to find my notes, and I found them again. I'm going to go through the list of all the players the Niners have lost since Monday, and then we'll talk about them. Let me get through the list because there's a lot of names there, Jason Aponte. The Niners lost a lot. Edge, Charles Omeni, who signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Chiefs. Edge, Samson Ebukam, 3-year, $27 million with the Colts. Emmanuel Mosley, 1 year, $6 million with Detroit. Azeez Al-Shaair with Tennessee. Daniel Brunskill with Tennessee. Hassan Ridgeway with Houston. Maurice Hurst with Cleveland, and Tarvarius Moore with Green Bay. Those are the players the Niners have lost. Who's the biggest name there? The biggest loss the Niners are going to have the toughest time replacing?
Emmanuel Mosley. Again, like I've had to talk, by the way, guys, I do 49ers Afternoon Report Monday through Thursday. You should tap in on that on the channel. But, I've had this talk with Mosley, and everyone has kind of been asking, well, how do you let him walk away for that amount of money? What if he didn't want to come back?
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit of like what you need to look at. Like, I wouldn't blame the organization wholly, but I do think that they have a very good feeling of what they have in Diamador Lenore. But Emmanuel Mosley, and I want to say Brunskill, man.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Mosley and Brunskill. And I know that sounds weird, but I think the 49ers were prepared to lose Omenihu and Ebukam, and especially at that price, they were never going to be in on that. But the Brunskill thing really kind of hurts because it felt like he was under the radar. And I kind of said this on State of the Franchise earlier, and we were just worried about D'Amico Ryans stealing everybody. It was Rand Carthan the whole time. You're the real villain. You were the one in the shadows. Not only did you take the players that we thought were valuable, you even took Arden Key, who the 49ers were kind of hoping just slipped through the cracks and just got back. It's insane. Rand Carthan is the real villain. It's not D'Amico Ryans. But with Brunskill, it's the versatility, it's the dependability, it's the availability at all those positions. Like, you could take a chance at right tackle, not know what you have, just knowing that Brunskill's behind him. And I think that's what he brought. With Mosley, you thought that he would sign a 1 year, something like that deal. And then it's like, man, for him to choose Detroit, he's going to go run across from Okuda. He played with Cam Sutton. I think Diamador Lenore did a great job down the stretch. I think he was incredible in the playoffs. But having Emmanuel Mosley return sometime during the season felt like a bit of a luxury that I thought the 49ers would have, and now that's gone. So the 49ers have to definitely look into now the cornerback free agent market. Hello, Marcus Peters. I hope you're listening. San Francisco would love you very much. But it does kind of take away something that I thought would happen in terms of, man, you can get him back for a year, and then he can reevaluate his market with another solid season. But shout out to Emmanuel Mosley, man. Hope he does great things in Detroit. Shout out Don Burr.
Oh, I love what the Lions are doing. Right, I wish they kept Jamal Williams instead of David Singletary, but that's just because I really like Jamal Williams and I like the Lions. But yeah, Jason, I was going to say Daniel Brunskill since you took Emmanuel Mosley. I think he's the toughest one to replace out of everybody they lost. Omenihu and okay, I'll let you.
I'm sorry. Let me answer this. Sin. What did that realtor tell you in Cali about state taxes? The taxes are the price you pay for good weather.
Yep.
$6 million goes a hell of a lot farther in Michigan than it does in California.
Yep.
And a lot of people feel like that, not just Manny. So.
Yeah, no, a lot of people do. I might be one of them one of these days. But yeah, no, out of that whole list, because like Omenihu and Ebukam, there might not be a bar-to-bar replacement on this roster. I know Drake Jackson exists, obviously, and they just signed Clelin Ferrell. But we're talking about two guys that we're talking like Clelin Ferrell for, right? They weren't well known. The Niners turned them into something, and now they're getting their contract. Emmanuel Mosley, bummer to lose him. It sucks. I don't like it, but Diamador Lenore makes you feel good enough to step in and take it. Azeez Al-Shaair, I love him. It just kind of felt like he fell out, especially with Dre Greenlaw. You mentioned McCrary Ball. He can step in. Daniel Brunskill, how do you replace him? And I know he's not an every down starter. He was in a weird platoon at right guard. But, man, that utility knife offensive lineman that Kyle Shanahan loves, like Brunskill felt perfect for it, even though they already bring back Brendel, just having his versatility. Oh, Banks goes down with a stinger. Okay, Brunskill. Oh, Burford needs a break. Brunskill. And so that's why, to me, that's the biggest loss behind Mosley. I do like Mosley just for his talent and who he is. But if you took Mosley, I'll take Brunskill.
I took them both. I hated both. Ah, crap. 4-3. It looks
It's
like
getting a
Puerto
little
Rico.
spicy?
Yeah, it's getting good in the 5th inning. Ooh, man. Oh, 4-2. I'm sorry.
Before
Sorry
two,
if I'm
okay.
distracted. I'm distracted by this baseball tournament that nobody cares about. No, yeah. I mean, like again, I think Brunskill afforded you the luxury of being able to try things, right? Like at right tackle, if you want to start Colton McKivitz and not address it, okay, well, at least Daniel Brunskill has experience; he can do it. Again, Banks goes down in Vegas. Okay, cool. Brunskill's going to start over there and finish the game out for you, and then he'll start the next game for you. It's just there's not a lot of linemen that are like that can do that for you. So I hate that, man. I hate that one. But again, Rand knew, and that's why he took Aziz, he took Brunskill, and I'm sure he had a lot to do with them bringing in Arden Key to begin with. So, shout out to you, Rand Carthan. Good job.
So where do the good job? Yeah, don't stop taking the Niners. We don't like it. Where do the Niners stand in free agency right this second? They had a couple restructures. Fred Warner restructured. He saves about $9.5 million in cap space. I would explain to you what they did to make that work. I would be confused myself, so I'm going to save you guys the details. You go look it up if you need to. And Charvarius Ward, he was restructured, saves about $10 million in cap space. According to Over the Cap, the 49ers cap space currently is $9,049,688, down to the dollar, Jason Aponte. Where do they go from here, in your opinion?
Right now, it feels like the 49ers got their guys, right, that they identified. The market, that's why there's so many big names still available. I think the market is developing. As you find out the market and interest in players cool down, other players become available via trade or just cut because you have to find a way to make moves and money for other people, you'll see a little bit more action. I do think the 49ers have one more edge in them. I am nowhere near as bullish as Yannick Ngakoue as people are on him. And let me explain. I do think that it's super telling that if Yannick Ngakoue was so good, so impactful, then why did the Colts immediately turn around and pay Ebukam much more money than they ever paid him? That's very impactful for me. I think that the people that are banging the table for Yannick haven't exactly watched him as much. For me, I feel your edge answer is Justin Houston. That is your edge answer at 34 years old. A one-year deal. Guy's going to chase a chip. He had his snaps pushed to a pass rush specialist, and he had 11 sacks, almost tripled his sacks from the year before when he had an every down role in Baltimore. So give me Justin Houston. And after that, once you get to that point, then you're exactly like now you're starting to go into the draft and you can do whatever you want. So for me, I think they have one more left in them. They'll probably add other vets who are going to come for a one-year deal. The 49ers are exactly what a veteran is looking for, right? A team where they're well coached, good culture, great players, have a chance to compete for an NFC title. So I think that's where they're at.
Veteran, one-year deal, chance to compete for an NFC title. It's a quarterback out there. Veteran, one-year deal. Quarterback, one-year deal, huh?
He's not out there.
Anyway, sorry. I know. No, I think we're talking a different one. One-year deal. Maybe a 46-year-old next year. One-year deal.
Oh no, veteran. Man! Come on.
Are you done with the Brady? Or are we done with that bit?
Brady is sitting in the shadows like Smithers smoking a cigarette. He's waiting to see how this develops. If the 49ers have two more injuries, Brady's just going to put in a call like, do it. I'm ready.
I think that's the why. Why do you think he's not on the Fox Sports booth, my guy?
That's what I'm saying. Once he said I'm not going to do Fox Sports this year, that's a dead giveaway. And he never turned in his retirement papers.
Just makes you think. Well, with the Brian Windhorst, Jason Aponte was big on the Brian Windhorst.
No, why would he do that?
Why would he do that? Jason, I have the same concerns on Yannick Ngakoue that you have. I'm just going to take it a little further because I could ask. You ask, why did Indianapolis let him go just to pay Charles Omenihu?
No,
why did Or sorry, Samson Ebukam. I apologize. Backwards. Niners are losing so many players. It's easier to get them all mixed together. Why didn't the Raiders keep him? Why didn't Baltimore keep him? Why didn't Minnesota keep him? Why didn't Jacksonville? 5 teams in 4 years. That is also, to me, very concerned. I'm not taking away how good he is. It's a concern to me. I'm going to go Jadeveon Clowney because that's one I've just wanted for a while. I know he's going to be a little more expensive than Justin Houston. I like your Justin
you better watch
Houston
out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you get into your spiel. Okay. But I'm going to predict the chat. We don't need that quitter. He's overrated. He's injury prone. Those are the 3. Go. Now you can go.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I hear all those concerns. 30 years old. I looked at his contract last year to see how because I think you get ballpark contract out of last contract, especially for a player like Jadeveon Clowney. 1 year, $10 million. It carried a $3.5 million cap hit last year. I think the Niners can do that, maybe a little more, because we mentioned $9,049,688 remaining in cap space. Jason Aponte, 2 sacks last year, 29 pressures in 12 games last year. But in 2021, 9 sacks, 53 pressures in 14 games. And this is my thing, and maybe a little bit on the Justin Houston side. Jason Aponte, is we talk about how Chris Kosaric can turn these really, I'm going to say average to decent edge rushers into good ones.
He's good at accentuating traits.
Yes, he's good at accentuating. So why not just give him a head start and get a guy who's already pretty well established in this league? Yes, not as good as he used to be, but why don't we just find out and see what happens? And Justin Houston falls into the same category as well, right? Justin Houston a little older. Maybe you get a little something out of him. So I'll go Clowney just to be a different, but we're both in the same brain wave with edge rushers, and I think that's what the Niners need. They're going to draft another one. The one I want is Byron Young out of Tennessee, but I think he played himself. He played himself out of the 3rd spot or the 3rd round too. I don't think he's going 3rd round anymore. But I do think the Niners need another edge rusher in this free agency class. Is Yannick Ngakoue a player I would want? Sure, I think you could do better, and I would rather go Clowney than Yannick. I think Jason would rather go Houston than Yannick. But there's options. I think that's the best way is there's options out there.
That's what's funny to me. It's just everybody's like, oh yes, Puerto Rico gets out of the inning 4-2. Let's go. I think that there's options, and everybody right now is, and Melvin Ingram's available as well too. This is the thing. It is the 5th day of free agency, and people are like, this is an F for free agency. Did free agency end today?
No.
Did it end today?
Well, that so far carries so much, Jason. They're losing so far.
See, but okay, if you want to say so far, you feel like you have lost more than you've gained, I could get on board with that discussion. But the full-on, this is an F, what are they doing? It's the 5th day. And when you look at the talent pool, many teams aren't exactly making moves. It feels like a dormant moment right now. I mean, for God's sakes, the last 3 notifications I got from Ian Rappaport had to do with fucking punters.
I've been meaning to say that, and thank you for bringing it up. There was a lot of punter action.
Dog,
a lot of punter action today.
Jake Bailey and this guy, who gives a shit? This is where we are right now. So there's punters that are now being are now on my notice from Schefter and Rappaport and My Sports Update. And you mean to tell me that free agency is over? Teams right now are still trying to maneuver their money, trying to figure out who fits. Players have multiple deals on the table right now, and they are not ready to jump at one because other teams will get desperate in certain spots. It is too early to deem this as a straight up loss. It's ridiculous, man. It's like the overreacting right now. Just because you've lost a bunch doesn't mean that the 49ers are just like, well, we have no backup plan. We didn't expect to do any of that stuff. For me, right now, if you want to say that you feel like they've lost more than they've gained, I can get on board with that. But a full-on failure, come on, man. It's the 5th day, man. Please, guys, let's exercise some sort of level-headedness here.
I got even something crazier. It's only the 2nd day of free agency, technically, because
technically,
yeah. So here's my thing, Jason. I'm just looking at the list of free agent edge rushers. I'm not saying I'm going to vouch for all of these players. I'm just looking at names and who I'd be comfortable with the Niners just signing. And this is not even looking at scheme fits. I'm just going by names here. But these are the free agent edge rushers that I'd just be okay signing. Leonard Floyd, Frank Clark. They list J.J. Watt. I don't think the Niners are talking him out of retirement. Yannick Ngakoue. We mentioned Davion Clowney. But you go further down, Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston, Dante Fowler. I saw JPP. Like there's a lot of names, and yes, not all of them are the best names, but they're names that I'm not like uncomfortable with. Is what I'm saying. It's like if you told me the Niners signed JPP tomorrow, I'd be like, that's interesting. But yeah, sure, let's see what it looks like. And I think that's what's getting lost because we see all these big names going, but like a lot of what free agency is, I mean, dare I say, finding the Isaiah Olivers among the Darius Slays. And I know Slay's not a free agent anymore. He went back to the Eagles. But a lot of what free agency is yes, those big Javon Hargrave names are so fun and sexy, but really the players are those mid-tier that really change a team. So that's where I'm at with free agency. I think the 3 moves the Niners, I guess it's now the 4 moves the Niners have made. I feel good with all of them. They all make sense. Now, can they do more? Absolutely. And they're going to have to do more.
Yeah, and they will. They will. Let's see. We got a super chat. Thank you, Tyler. Jason and Andrew, to be honest, I think we're doing great in free agency because we are working on improving our needs for the most part. Tyler, there is no room for this sort of level-headed take. There is no room for this sort of rational thinking.
No.
If you were here to get rational thoughts and, everybody likes to call me spicy, cool, then this isn't this is the place for you, like right now at this point. Like, it's the 5th day. I don't know what else needs to be said, man. And again, and I keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it. More and more players are going to be available based on cap casualties and hard decisions that teams have to make. So why would teams dive headfirst right now into allocating super money to people when there might be a player who is there for you that could make more financial sense and be more of a schematic fit and locker room fit for you? Again, we've reached a point where no news is good news. It's kind of quiet. Keep it that way at this point. Everybody is doing their due diligence. Take a shot. For me, it's just you're watching how things are playing out, and I think that's the smartest thing to do at this point.
BNA, thank you for the donation. We have until the Halloween to make trades, and our best ones have happened mid-season. No need to shoot our load. Pause yet. I just like the comment. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like this is always like just because the free agency's over doesn't mean the Niners can't make moves. I mean, you make the point, Christian McCaffrey, right? Like that wasn't a free agency move. Like the roster's always going to be changed. And like I guess the best way to say it, Jason, is in 4 months we're going to have a podcast where we're going to talk about the 53-man roster. And by the time we record that podcast, the initial 53-man roster is already going to be different. Like there's so much changing, and this is the time of year where it's going to change the most. But there's still plenty of time, guys. So I'm giving it a B free agency so far. I don't think they haven't lost anybody yet that I said, wow, that's a shock they didn't bring them back. Maybe Mosley was the closest, but everybody they've lost, I think the Niners have planned to have lost at this point.
They would have loved to bring back Omenihu. They would have loved to bring back Ebukam. Yes. But when you see those numbers, and BNA knew exactly what he was doing. When you see those numbers, it's impossible for the 49ers to match that. And I think that they had in their mind, we'd love to have them at a certain price, but if it gets to this price, we're out. And what's the contingency plan? So again, look, this is the part that I have a problem with. The 49ers have given fans confidence to tell any fan base, our roster top to bottom is better than yours, right? Well, how in the hell did they figure that out? How in the hell did they do that? They did that with their plan. They did that with undrafted free agents. They did that with their comp picks. They did that with their entire formula. And now, 5 days in, all of a sudden now, free agency is a waste. What are these guys doing? How did your team compete in 3 of the last 4 NFC championship games?
Yeah.
Was it because of luck? They have a formula. I can't believe that I have to tell, and not our people that watch this, not the people that are watching right now because they're smart. I can't believe that I have to tell this to people that aren't as educated. There's a method to the madness. And why is it that it is now all of a sudden something that is just completely lost on you at this point? They're doing the right thing. And when you look at the NFC, the Packers are done. The Vikings are selling everybody. The Rams and the Cardinals are cooked. The Eagles are good. Dallas is whatever. The Giants are whatever. Who in the NFC is actually running away with this thing right now? The Lions are very good. I like what the Lions are doing.
Dude.
I like what the Lions are doing. But the Niners are still a top 2 roster right now with all those. Like, if we started the season today, today, the Niners have the second best roster. Even if you want to say that they're better than Philly, I'm with you or whatever. They still they have additions and a draft. Like, guys, please relax. Please relax. Please relax.
This is the exercise I've been playing. Is you take the NFC, as we know at this second, a lot can change. But as of this second, I think the top 3 teams in the NFC are the 49, not in order, 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are doing nice things right now in free agency. But after those 3, like, is it the Detroit Lions? Is it the Minnesota Vikings? I guess technically we have to say the Packers as of this second because Aaron Rodgers is on that roster right now, but that's going to change. Who's the 4th best team in the NFC? And that's what people need to be focusing on, because is it Seattle? Like, exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, Seattle, I think Seattle's the closest team that can dethrone the Niners.
Seattle's scary. If they get Jalen Carter, I'm scared to death.
I think Seattle's scary, but I don't think they're going to challenge the Niners in 2020.
No, Seattle can win this draft and do like they did last year, where they hit on a bunch of starters and still be a part. So listen to what I just said. Seattle landed a starting corner, a starting slot corner, 2 bookend tackles, and a starting running back in their draft, and they had a very good season, and they could win this draft again and still be behind the 49ers as of right now if they didn't add anybody. That's insane to think.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. So that, like, I understand that we live in this 24-hour news cycle and people got to react when they think they got to react. But yeah, let's let this marinate. You just got to let it marinate, get more flavor, and see what it looks like in a couple weeks, in a couple months. Because realistically, like, I hate to take this angle on it, but none of these moves matter until September anyways. Like, everything you hear for the next 4 or 5 months, even on this podcast, is going to be hypotheticals. None of this is known. Javon Hargrave, obviously you hope Javon Hargrave does great, but we don't know. We don't know if Sam Darnold's the starting quarterback right now. I don't think he is. I don't think he's going to be, but we don't know until we get to the point. So yeah, man, like, listen, everybody's going to have the reactions right now, but right now is the time just level-headed because we don't know any of this until September.
It's 48 minutes and we still haven't even gotten to the quarterback portion of this, and I'm all riled up, man.
What quarterback portion? You want to talk more Darnold?
Look, just guys, not you guys that are watching. Just let's settle down. Settle down. Trust me, I'll get angry enough for all of us if something goes wrong. Promise you.
Jason, I'm gonna do it. I've been waiting for it.
Do it.
Everybody be listening. Last call on Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Unless we get a reason to talk about him. Unless we have a very specific
unless the Raiders
context.
Unless the Raiders make the Super Bowl and the 49ers face them.
Exactly. Like we might touch on Jimmy Garoppolo doing something cool for the Raiders, but we're not going to have a Jimmy Garoppolo specific conversation until the Niners play the Raiders. So this is the last call on the Jimmy Garoppolo portion of the Spurt Red Option podcast. I had a very stark realization last night, Jason Aponte. I was kind of walking around my apartment area, and I actually live next door to one of my old apartment complexes. And I looked at it, and I realized that I know the exact spot I was standing in when I read the tweet that the 49ers acquired Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't know why that feels so important in my brain, but I could literally like go outside, take a picture of the spot I saw the text, and I remember it because it was the first time it felt like the Niners had a quarterback solution. Obviously, the next 6 years got a little wild and weird and fun. And maybe if it wasn't for Jimmy Garoppolo, Jason Aponte and I never meet. I don't know. You don't know what Jimmy Garoppolo did to your life. I I guess it's one of those things where what's the saying? Don't be sad it's over, be happy it happened. And I think I realized in these 2 days of Jimmy Garoppolo being a Raider, and I know there's weird things that happen in between then. Distance makes the heart grow fonder, and I think I'm going to miss Jimmy Garoppolo as much as we complained about having to talk about him every week. I think I'm gonna miss the player Jimmy Garoppolo on the 49ers because, man, he made you feel something, whether it was one way or another. Jimmy Garoppolo made you feel something. I think that's what sports should be.
Jimmy,
I didn't.
This one's for you, buddy. And I want to drink to Jimmy real quick, and I have thoughts. Just give me a sec.
Yes. World isn't ready for Vegas, Jimmy.
Jimmy, the 49ers were lost before you got here. You won a bunch of games. You look like a Disney prince. You look like the guy. And you brought Juice back to Levi's. I'll never forget that. Because I think a lot of 49er fans forget Jim Tomsula, Chip Kelly, CJ Beathard, Brian Hoyer. And I want to say to Jimmy Garoppolo, there were ups, there were downs, there were memorable moments, good or bad. But Jimmy Garoppolo has given us things to talk about. He's propped up content creators' whole careers, entire careers. Some, not all. Good luck, buddy. Good luck. We'll always have the highs. And that's how I'm going to choose to remember you at this moment right now, right? My favorite Jimmy Garoppolo moment. And everybody's going to say the Saints game. People will point to the Halloween Arizona game. My favorite Jimmy Garoppolo moment. Week 18, Los Angeles Rams, 49ers are down, 2 injuries. Nobody believes that Jimmy's going to bring them back. Throws them down the field. Not only ties the game, helps them win the game. I am always going to remember that game because that was the moment, good or bad. Doesn't matter how you felt. The 49ers wound up playing in the NFC Championship game, and they don't if he doesn't come back in that game. Shout out to Jimmy Garoppolo. Vegas ain't ready for you. Pray for the women in Las Vegas. That man was crushing it at that press conference in the black on black. Shout out to you, buddy.
Oh, I don't think we're ready for Vegas, Jimmy. I don't think this world is ready because it took him approximately 1 press conference for him to look hotter than he ever did for the 49ers. That all black, oh my God. Swoon, Jimmy Garoppolo. You see why the what do they call him out there? Is the bunny ranch with the signs yesterday? I love that. Like, just support Jimmy Garoppolo, support Jimmy Garoppolo. We love it. I feel like the villain arc is going to be fantastic for Jimmy Garoppolo because I just something about the Raiders black just screams villain, and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the Darth Vader of that Death Star. I think. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Jimmy Garoppolo can do in Vegas.
Here's this prediction.
Yes.
Because no matter what you want to say, because 49er fans have kind of, been critical of Jimmy. That's me putting it nicely. What I want you to do is I want you to go to the Raiders official Twitter account under where they posted the Jimmy Garoppolo press conference. And I want you to read all of the Raiders fans and their dirty, disgusting comments about a player that they haven't seen yet. So here's my prediction. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. I'm going to stake a claim. I'm ready. Jimmy Garoppolo throws 3 touchdowns, doesn't throw an interception in the game, and the Raiders win their first game, and Raiders fans completely hop on this man's jock and completely change their whole tune. I am putting that out there right now. Clip this, come back to me, whatever it is, fine. I don't care who the opponent is. I do not care who the opponent is. Those same Raiders fans that are talking crazy about a guy who is probably going to have a better season than Derek Carr is as long as he stays healthy. That's his only real detriment behind Carr. Are going to change their tune. And you know what, Jimmy Garoppolo? No matter what, I will root for you, buddy. Don't care. Doesn't make me a Raiders fan. I want to see you do well. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I want to see you flourish. And I know Vegas ain't ready for you, bro. I know Vegas ain't ready for you. They are not ready for that, man. That is prime time lights. Let's go, Jimmy. Let's go.
All right. Final call is done. The Jimmy Garoppolo era is over, unless he gives us a reason to mention him. We're done with him. Hey, Jason, I just want to let you know a school named Farley Dickinson just beat Purdue, 16-1 seed.
Fuck the Boilermakers as a Hoosier. Let's go, Hoosiers.
I didn't know you were a Hoosier. What?
To me, my father went to Indiana.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I did not know that. Wow. I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, dude. Second 16 seed to beat a 1 seed in NCAA tournament history, men's tournament history, because it's having a lot of women's. I don't want to forget them. NCAA men's history, the second 16 to beat a 1. We love it. Jason, do you have any final thoughts before we dip today?
Sam Darnold's here to be in a competition with Trey Lance, but I think that I'm gonna make another statement. Trey Lance is going to win this competition. By the way. Let's also, like, I'm just in a mood where I want to put my opinions out there. Trey Lance is going to beat Sam Darnold in a competition. Sam Darnold's here to compete. Sam Darnold isn't here to be a placeholder, but I believe in Trey. Trey's going to beat him in a job, and Trey should, because he's the guy that I think he is, and many of us think he is. So it's good to see Sam Darnold's here, and he's the Geno Smith for Kyle Shanahan to the way that Geno Smith was to, Pete Carroll. So, yeah, I'm good.
I'll go. I won't. I'm in the boat that I think it's to give an appearance of a competition. I don't think there's a direct competition. I still think this is Trey Lance's job to lose. But I think that part of the sentence is the scariest, because if Trey Lance does lose this job to Sam Darnold, I mean, it's a bad thing, but it's also a good thing in terms for the 49ers, because it's an answer of sorts. I don't think he loses to Sam Darnold. I think Trey Lance is your week 1 starter. I don't think Darnold was brought in to compete. I think he was brought in to give the appearance of a competition. It is Trey Lance's spot to lose at this point, in my opinion. And I have everything to expect that Trey Lance is QB1 right now.
Yeah, Trey Lance is QB1.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
That's the audio you should pull right here. Is Trey Lance is QB1. Everything we say, Trey Lance is QB1. Hey, Jason Aponte, I think everybody today should tweet something nice about Jimmy Garoppolo on their timeline today, just one last time. Because
again, guys,
that mood.
He's not here anymore.
Not here anymore.
Why show interceptions? Why not say something nice on the way out? Why not, why not just say something nice? That's all.
The amount of people celebrating a potential failed physical on the timeline yesterday was a little gross and a little weird.
Well, all right, Andrew, can I
listen? It's not an unsuspected outcome. I don't think people would have been shocked, but I saw people like celebrating it, and that's where it's weird.
Well, all right, not celebrating it, but can I confess something? Yeah. Is this a safe space, guys? 100 people in here. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, get the Sprint Right Option podcast wherever you get your podcast. But can I make a small little confession?
Absolutely.
The idea of Jimmy failing a physical and still somehow having a chance to be back as a 49er was something that I kind of was just like, so just to watch people panic and to people irrationally lose their mind was something that I'm not gonna lie. I was just sitting there like
Jimmy G QB4. I think that was my first message to the group when the press conference was postponed. I was like, Jimmy G QB4. I'm back on the table. I'm into it. I was into it.
So I just wanted to make sure that I'm completely clear. As far as the content goes, right? Because that's what Jimmy G has given is incredible content, right?
Amazing, all-time content.
Imagine being able to go to training camp next year, Andrew Pasquini, or this summer, and we go there. Trey Lance is taking snaps, Sam Darnold's taking snaps, Jimmy Garoppolo's taking snaps, and Brock Purdy's just kind of sitting there in the wings waiting. The 49ers are a content factory.
Oh yeah.
My God. Oh, yeah. I just wanted to see people lose it. That's it. Really, I was just rooting for chaos. That is really what I was doing. But I'm glad that it's all done. I'm glad that Jimmy's got a new place. Jimmy needed a new place to go. Both sides needed to separate at this point. And it's like the couple that kept trying to make it work for the kids, which was the locker room. Now you guys both kind of realized it's time for you to go your separate ways, and you're better off without each other.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Sprint Ride Option podcast. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Jason, as always. That's the most important thing. Give me one last PR score update. Is this a 4-2?
4-2 in the top of the 7th. Let's go, man. Winner goes on to face who beat Italy?
Japan.
Sorry. Japan. Okay. Well, man. Puerto Rico's
yeah,
Puerto Rico's insanity
he's a little serious.
Puerto Rico's insanity run it might be up if they find a way to move on. But funny,
well, I got good news. Shohei pitched against Italy, so I don't know what that does for his eligibility for the next round.
I don't know if he's gonna. I think they get a day off, but who cares? Nobody cares about that. Shout out to everybody that was in here. We almost had 100 people in here, an hour. Thank you guys. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and make sure that you're subscribed to the Sprint Ride Option podcast wherever you get your audio podcasts. Thank you guys as always.
Yeah, we love each and every one of you. It's the grind time of the year where we're just talking about free agency. So we appreciate each and every one of you for giving us an hour or two of your week. We will be back next week at some point. We'll see what happens with free agency and trades and just see what it is. I like SoCal Niner fans' idea. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.
And Puerto Rico.
Have a good St. Patty's Day, everybody.
And Puerto Rico.
And Puerto Rico. Go Puerto Rico.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.